and welcome to the First Watch podcast. My name is Drake. I will be your host for this podcast. I will be joined by a rotating group of friends who come together and discuss their first watches, whether they be from the 1920s, the 2020s, or anything in between. Now, this is going to be a spoiler-heavy podcast, so if you haven't watched the movie already, you could either do one of two things. You could either, one, join us for the conversation and decide whether or not you want to watch the movie for the very first time, or two, you can pause this podcast, go watch the movie for the first time, and then come back and join us for the conversation. Now, without further ado, sit back, relax, grab some popcorn, and enjoy the combo. Hello, welcome back to the First Watch podcast. We are back with Seth. It has been a while since he's been on the podcast, but we have returned for Marie Antoinette, a Sofia Coppola movie. I think this might be my first Sofia Coppola movie. I may be wrong, but I've got to look and see again.
Mm-hmm.
Was this your first Sofia Coppola movie?
This was not my first Sofia Coppola film. First of all, Drake, how are you? Thank you for having me back.
Okay. Yeah, of course.
We're here. You say it's been a while, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
when was the last time I was here? And I was like, $1 million.
It's been a minute.
Baby, maybe. Yeah. It's possible. So, this is like the Sofia Coppola film that I actually like haven't seen. I've seen a bunch of her other stuff. I like her very much, but Marie Antoinette always evaded me for some reason. I don't know why. This came out in 2006. I would have been, 18 or so. So I was prime age to go see this in theaters, and for some reason I didn't, and then just never revisited it.
Wait, Marie Antoinette came out in 2006?
It did indeed.
I'm actually kind of shocked by that.
Yeah. Were you born yet?
What? Yes, I was like 10.
Oh, I was going to say, where were you, 1?
No, wait, hold on. 2006? No, I was 10. Yeah, I didn't know this came out in 2006. I thought this was a little bit like more recent because it just kind of felt that way.
Yeah.
I don't know why I felt that it was more like in the realm of like 2010s or somewhere around there, but yeah, because it definitely felt more recent than 2006.
Yeah, no, it's nestled right in the middle of the worst decade of movies of all time, the 2000s.
But it kind of makes sense if you look at the music. The music kind of makes more sense now that I know that it was done in 2006. The song choices were very much of that time, early 2000s kind of punk rock type music that they chose for this movie, which I thought was interesting that they decided to go more modern as opposed to kind of stick with the period of the material. I think that was a good mix to have the massive views of the period, like all the dresses and everything of the period, but then mix it with the music. I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, all right, listeners, are you ready? You're going to learn a word that people love to throw around, and you have to say, wow, what does that mean? I'm just going to pretend I know. Anachronistic. Anachronistic, or an anachronism, means to put something into a time period where it doesn't really exist. Very good example of this would be the finale of Dirty Dancing, which takes place in like the 50s or 60s. And then they're all just dancing to a song that is very clearly from the 80s.
Yeah.
So I use that as the example because as you're watching Dirty Dancing, it is very much of its time, or rather the time that it's set in. But then when they bring that in, it doesn't feel out of place. It blends kind of seamlessly with the rest of the movie. And it's an iconic song. It's an iconic moment. And that's when it works really well. I think Marie Antoinette is probably another example of a time when it works really well. The film starts with a song by Gain of Four, and I was like, oh, I didn't expect Gain of Four to make an appearance here. But there are times where it's done, I think, to less of a rewarding experience. I can't really think of anything right now. Another movie from around this time, 2000s, would be A Knight's Tale.
Yes.
With Heath Ledger. So, okay, that's it. That's the end of my examples. So, folks, if you're ever trying to remember what anachronistic means, just remember Marie Antoinette, the end of Dirty Dancing, and A Knight's Tale.
Yeah. The music works very well. I didn't expect it at first. I kept hearing about people talk about this movie, and just say that it was really good, really good, really good. And I might, much like yourself, really kind of just put it off because I was just like, I'll get to it eventually, that kind of thing. But whenever you listed it, I was like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity for me to watch it finally. And once I like sat down and started to really take it in, I was like, oh, I really like this. Like the set pieces are fucking insane. It is absolutely massive. It is so grand in scale. It's the costumes are top notch. Like makeup is done perfectly. I'm surprised that I took so long to watch this. I'm surprised that this isn't talked about more so like at a larger scale. Because I feel like a lot of people talk about it on film Twitter, but that's kind of normal for people like you and I who are like talking about more obscure films. But this feels like it should be talked about a lot. And I don't see that.
Yeah, I mean, I've like, I mean, what are we now? 20 years on the anniversary of this film this year.
Yeah.
So I have heard about this movie for a long, long time, and whenever I come on, you ask me for movies, and whenever I come on, you ask me for movies that I haven't seen before, as if that's the theme of your show, and and this is among like if I go to like films on Letterboxd and I sort it by like most popular movies and then movies that I haven't seen, there's going to be several like Hunger Games sequel movies in there that I'm just never going to watch. There's The Martian, for some reason everyone on the planet has seen Matt Damon's The Martian. Why would I see The Martian? Why? If I had any feeling that Matt Damon was going to starve to death on Mars, I would watch The Martian.
Did you see Project Hail Mary?
I did, yeah.
Same author.
Yeah, I don't care.
Okay.
So
just
yeah, this is something that I've meant to see for a while, and I don't know why. I guess I just kind of thought of this as like, well, this is Sofia Coppola's like popular film. And so, I mean, this obviously in Lost in Translation. And so I was like, I don't really feel a great need to run to, her more popular stuff, which is a stupid, that's something that I've really been trying to work myself out of the last couple of years, is this idea that the most popular stuff can't possibly be good because, whatever the populace enjoys the most is probably really stupid. And I've proved myself wrong on that time and time again. Now, having said that, I will say that I definitely more so appreciate this movie than loved this movie. I was very taken with Kirsten Dunst's performance and how Coppola frames Antoinette as being very other and very different. And in doing so, makes her very universal for us as a character, because all of us have had the experience of being the new person or being the person who's different And especially towards the beginning where we see her, she's young, she has her dog, she's happy, and then she's forced into this marriage. And I think probably my favorite scene in the movie is when she's being stripped of everything from Vienna. And they're like, oh, this is customary. You're going to enter our border as a French person. And the idea of erasing or like subtraction by addition, it's like you're not going to be this thing anymore because you're going to be this. We're going to like take your identity and replace it with something else. It's very, very painful. It's very, very painful. And throughout the movie, I feel, especially in the hair and makeup, that they really differentiate Marie from the people around her, so that even when you just look at the frame and you can see all the characters, she kind of stands out. And she doesn't stand out by being more outrageous. She kind of stands out by being a little more simple looking than the rest of them. Not all the time, but a few times throughout. So again, I didn't love this. I would rewatch this movie to see if there's something that I kind of didn't grasp. But I do think it's a good movie, and it's probably a really good movie for young people, to be honest. So anyone who's struggling with this idea of like maybe going to a new school or like starting a new job or just any type of change in your life that's, unavoidable. I would imagine that this would probably resonate because nobody wants to feel different, I mean, I do. I like being different, but
I kind of recently resonated with that a little more so than I thought, because I restarted back at college. I not only restarted back at college, but also went back onto a campus after not being on a college campus for in 8 years, 9 years, right? And I was very nervous. I was very much like Marie, where I was just like, this is gonna be rough.
Mhm.
And yeah, I kind of connected to that a little more than I thought. I didn't think that I was gonna connect to really anything, based on what I know of Marie Antoinette, like historically speaking. What we do learn of Marie throughout history classes and stuff. I didn't think I was gonna connect very much with her or her problems in this film. There's also like this one undertone that I did not expect, is of like her having to go to France. The whole purpose of her going to France and marrying this prince is to then bring relations between Austria and France closer to like an allyship. And like she was hounded to have a child. Hounded. It was like hammered into her head that if she doesn't have a child, the relations between Austria and France are going to be fucking tarnished. It's going to be horrible. And there was so much pressure on her that I didn't expect there to be. And I thought it was kind of cool that they took I was not expecting them to take something so far back in history and talk about something so modern, or at least make it feel so modern whenever they were talking about the pressures of women and what they go through and how they have to deal with things like this, because you don't really think about Marie having to deal with pressures that modern day women are talking about now. But they highlighted that so perfectly in the movie, whether that be Sophia's doing or whether that be that it was already documented in like historical documents. That I don't know. I haven't read anything written by Marie to be able to tell whether or not she was actually going through those things. But I could probably guess that she went through a lot of the things that were shown in the film. And it was really cool to see Sophia, take that concept that is kind of more of a modern conversation that we have and put it in the backdrop of I say Victorian France, but like, just older
Yeah.
French times,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
It was very
definitely.
interesting.
Yeah. And so, you and I are two dudes talking about this movie and its universal application to our experience. However, there is definitely an aspect to the feminine side of this person and the pressure. Like, I'm trying to think of an example of how insane it is to put pressure on a person to produce a certain type of child. And this goes beyond like, oh, I would really like to have a boy or I would really like to have a girl. This goes beyond, oh, my parents would really like for me to have a boy or my parents would really. This is kind of like the fate of the next generation of your nation is riding on whether or not your body and your husband's sperm combine in the way that will produce this type of person. And the only thing that I could think of was really like it even fails to fulfill the full weight of the situation. Because if I said to you, all right, Drake, it's very important that the next time you go poop, it's this specific color brown.
Yeah, that'd be hard to pull off.
That'd be very
I give it a shot.
You give it a shot. And the reason I say like, oh, that's even kind of, that doesn't even, because you know what? You could experiment with that. You could track yourself over the course of a week, really watch what you're eating, your fluid intake, and you might actually be able to get close to being like, okay, I know on Thursday the 13th, I got to produce this. Let's go. So you and I, as two dudes talking about this, we cannot possibly imagine like the mental duress you would be under to make something happen that you have no control over. I guess what I could say is that I could say, okay, Drake, when you go to sleep tonight, you have to dream about a certain thing. You know what I mean? Like, but even some people can lucid dream, and you can, and even putting the thought in your head might produce that to come. So I'll just say here right now, you and I cannot relate to that pressure, and to put that on, a child at the time, which we know that like ages were kind of different, but she's still, I think she's 15 when the movie starts. That's a child. Like, I don't care how smart you are. You only have 15 years of life and maybe 13 years of consciousness under your belt at that point. Yeah. So to put that impossible task on a person and then to have her husband just be a complete non-participator.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
He's just like, I just don't want to.
Right. It's like, okay, well, that's, good for you. But so, yeah, so I did feel that. And I think that the movie does a good job of making that like a little comical, like the scene where, the entire court is basically like in their bedroom. Yeah. And they're just like, okay, good luck. It helps us see how absurd putting those expectations are, on a person. And to relate it back to a universal application, it's likewise crazy to look at a person who is producing something, whether that be like a work of art or a personal expression, and to be like, hey, make sure it's like this. Because in the journey of self-expression, a lot's going to come out that you might not intend, or you might be surprised by yourself. And so the absurdity, like I felt as I was watching that, I wondered if Coppola was making a statement on art by committee, creation by committee, what it's like to work in the studio system where you have like literally the head looking at you laying in bed being like, okay, thumbs up, good luck everybody. We're going to go away now. Here is now your time to produce something that is alive. But make sure it's like this, otherwise it's all a waste. I might be really reaching with that, but
What may have been a subconscious thing that she, she may have been thinking about, or just very passively thinking about while she was making the film.
Yeah.
And didn't realize it until maybe after it was put together, and then other people picked up on it who have done the same, like similar things, and in that they've created their own things that they put out into the world. I can imagine that there have been a lot of people that have connected to it in that way. I never really saw it that way until you actually brought it up, but now that you say it, actually kind of, I see, where you're coming from on that.
Yeah. It's very hard to wear another person's shoes and produce things that are meant to be alive, and then to kind of mold them,
Yeah.
in that way. I have the end of Oak Street on my mind because I went and watched that, and there's word of studio meddling in the final
Really?
product, and if there's anything that movie lovers hate, it's studio meddling, right?
Very much so.
We'll walk out of a bad movie and be like, the studio must have had a hand in this.
Yeah. I still haven't seen End of Oak Street yet. I haven't had a chance.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really heard anything about the meddling yet. I've more so heard about the outrage of them using AI to fucking market this thing, because it was just absurd that they did that in the first place. I didn't understand who that was for. It didn't make any sense, and it looked really gaudy and weird.
Yeah,
but
you hire a marketing company, and they pitch you on it, and then you say yes, and for some reason this is what they chose to go with. Yeah, I did not watch it. I saw it, and I was like, well, I already know that I hate it, so no thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if the studio had any hand in this film, like maybe cutting things out or putting things in they may or may not have liked. I'm guessing Sofia had complete creative control. It kind of felt that way. I mean, I don't, it doesn't feel, I guess the word to me would be manufactured.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like an assembly line movie like some of the movies that we get nowadays, where it's just like we need to pump something out in order to make money to keep us afloat. This felt more like a love letter to history, to women's issues, to a lot of different social issues that are mentioned in the movie, as well as like the music that is used, a little bit of a love letter to like punk rock and the rebellious nature of what Marie was going through, because she was kind of a rebel compared to a lot of the other people that she was around. Again, I don't know how historically accurate that may be. I don't know if she was much of a rebel, in the confines of actual history, but that was obviously the tone that they were going for whenever they had that music. I'm guessing that was all Sofia. I mean, I don't fully know, but I doubt many, studio heads would be able to come up with that themselves. I don't think they're smart enough to come up with that themselves, if I'm being entirely honest.
Yeah, definitely. I'll say fully, this movie feels like a work of art, and it feels at times rough and surprising. there's a way to do historical drama that we've seen before many times over. There's a shot towards the beginning of the film. I believe it's when we're introduced to Louis and his two friends, and they're just kind of like screwing around with like swords or sticks or something. And two things that I noticed. One is that their conversation sounds like it could be taking place today. And on that note, it sounds like a conversation that like 8-year-old boys would be having. And then the other thing that I noticed, which I was just so excited by, is the camera shakes. There's a bit of a jump. They don't do a jump cut, but it's almost as if the camera was like on a tripod or it was mounted somehow, and then you can see where they lift it off and it goes to handheld. And that would be considered a ruined take, like that is, and I'm not using this word clearly because I'm about to praise this decision to keep it, but that would be seen as like so unprofessional, right? Camera movements communicate different things, and you want something that's smooth. If you're seeing the camera move, it's because it's lining up with something that's happening within frame, something that's happening with the character. Here, though, this is just that we're panning from left to right, and right there in the middle of it is a jiggle. It's an imperfection. I love that. I love imperfections, quite frankly. I love knowing that I'm watching a movie. People love to be like immersed. I don't like to be immersed. I like to live in reality. And the decision to keep that in is in part what the spirit of punk is, which is to not hide imperfections through the process of practice and making sure that everything sounds correctly. It's about what's happening here and now, and if your talent or equipment don't match your passion is still allowed to run free, right? And so certainly, the final shot of the film, which I think is fantastic, just the bedroom. This is a work of art. Like this is not a cookie cutter movie. Like I say all that to agree with what you said, that like this doesn't feel like a whole bunch of meddling, because if someone were going to meddle, I think that they would have tried to quote unquote fix parts of this. And luckily those things weren't fixed,
I noticed a lot in the dialogue that there were instances where it was kind of more, old timey, like old Frenchy Victorian shit, and then more modern. Like it was a mix of the modern language that you would hear in the 2000s and the old timey shit. But it melded perfectly, and I think the reason they did that is so that just the wider audience can actually kind of connect to it more. And if you're having a movie that has all of these conversations that we were having about like more modern issues for women and stuff, having the more modern language being used in a movie is probably a good choice. And I feel like if a studio had more power, probably be like, why are they talking as if it's fucking 2005, 2006? And they would be like, no. If we're gonna do a movie from this time period, it's got to stay in this time period. And I'm so glad they didn't do that. At first, I was like, okay, this is weird. I didn't expect this, but then I was just like, you know what? It kind of works.
Yeah,
I was like, all right, I'm just gonna let her go with it.
Yeah, definitely. And historical accuracy is such a slippery slope. I don't care about it at all. Once you dedicate yourself to accuracy, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure because there's just no way to 100% do it. Robert Eggers starts out as a set designer. His parents are, well, no, we don't need to talk about his parents, but he has a pretty extreme dedication to historical accuracy, and he'll point out things that they got wrong or things that they did wrong. So it's kind of like, to me, where does it start? Where does it stop? How much is enough for people to not be like, well, that's not the way it's supposed to look? We're on the other side now of Nolan's version of the Odyssey, and the amount of talk ahead of the movie coming out about the film's anachronisms. Remember, folks, an anachronism is when we take something from one time period and put it into another one. There was so much discussion on that. Even just, how the helmets and the armor they were wearing wasn't actually of the time period. And I just don't care about those things. I also don't really care too much about adaptation. As soon as you begin an adaptation, it is different from the thing, unless you are copying. So if you are, but even then, you ever read a book when you're younger and you had one version of the book? Maybe it was a paperback that like fit in your pocket, and then you go to rebuy that book later on, and the only ones that they have, it's like new art on the cover, and it's like, oh, this isn't my book. So even just straight up copying the text from one size, one, you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but it's like, you do. It's like, ugh, that's not what Dracula looks like. What is this crap? Or even worse, you read a book when you were a kid, they made a film adaptation of it, and then when you go to rebuy it, the only cover has a photo from the movie, and you're like, well, I don't like that.
And
anyway,
the movie also sucks.
Yes.
I.e. Ender's Game. Yeah.
Well, I didn't love Ender's Game as much as I loved the series. I read that whole series. I was a huge Orson Scott Card fan when I was growing up. I read almost everything that he had ever written. So I was like, I'm going into Ender's Game ready to hate this. I was okay with it. But my point is, once you begin an adaptation of something, it is always different. So we all have to get past that. And what I like about how Coppola handles the material is just, again, right off the bat, we're starting with a song by Gain of Four. She is telling you, like, hey, this is different, but it's cool. It's cool. Like, it's okay. Like, you can just hold on and hang out, and you'll see what I'm doing. And again, what she's doing isn't historical accuracy. And I guess my point is, like, nothing really is historical accuracy because we don't have the people from that time, and we don't have the exact things that they wore, and everything is going to, everything's going to be different, and that's okay. It's okay. To quote my favorite Star Wars film, let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
Wait, which one is that?
The Last Jedi. Anyway,
Okay,
anyway,
Yeah.
my point is, yes, I agree with you. This is a work of art, and it's a fine film.
Yeah, Kirsten is a big reason for that as well.
Oh,
like her
God.
acting in this is insanely good.
It's very good. It's really good. She's so good. She's just kind of always, you go back and you watch Jumanji, and it's like, yeah, there she is. She's doing good. It's a silly movie, but she's there. I watched Dick a few years back. It's Kirsten Dunst and Michelle Williams in a two-hander about two girls who befriend Richard Nixon. You must watch this movie.
I think I've seen the cover of it, but I've never seen the actual.
Yes, just to see, like, top of their game young Kirsten Dunst and Michelle Williams being like gut-bustingly hilarious in this movie. Dick, I recommend it to absolutely everybody. It's so good. So good.
Yeah, I've seen the poster for this movie a million times, but never actually watched the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I mean, she's to me like Kirsten Dunst has never lost steam. You know, there's one movie I watched with her that I didn't really care for. It was a little more surreal. I was a fan of Alex Garland's Civil War.
Yeah, I was too.
But especially her performance in it. I was like, this is so awesome to see her really like feel like a character that is her age, to be weary that a person of this age would be, you know, especially someone who's gone through all these things that she's gone through. It was so refreshing because I mean, she's definitely older than me, but I have grown up with Kirsten Dunst. And so to see her being able to just continue operating at the same level of Jumanji, you know, for all these years later.
Yeah, I was introduced to Kirsten. I think Spider-Man came first for me, and then I saw Jumanji not long after that. But I saw her in Spider-Man first because I was born in '96. I mean, Spider-Man, like I was a big superhero fan growing up, and the Spider-Man movies were kind of the reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so seeing her as Mary Jane, like growing up and watching a million times, I knew she was a great actress.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how good that acting was at the time because I had no way of like gauging that or really knowing what good acting was. But if you look back at it now, like she did a fantastic job in Spider-Man. She was a fantastic actress in that movie. And it just goes to show like how good of an actress she has been for so long.
Yes. Yeah.
I want her to be in everything.
Yep.
I'd love for her to be in more films. I had always heard that she was really good in Marie Antoinette.
Yep.
And that was the main reason that people were talking about this movie was because of her. And you know, I love her in pretty much everything that I've seen her in. And so it's kind of strange that it took me this long to finally watch the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I have, I'm like, oh, sweet. At least I can say I've seen another movie with her in it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. She's very good. I was also very taken with Jason Schwartzman, who I love. I mean, I love Jason Schwartzman. I appreciate him, and I don't want to say that he has a persona that he always acts as, because that might be a little, you know, unkind to his talents. But what I will say is that here, he's funny. He's very, you know, subtly, he's very funny. But by the time we get to the end and we have the two of them, you know, sitting at their table, eating their meal as they're about to be killed, you know, basically just spinning the wheels until they're killed, I was very, very impressed with his, and not just that. Like, there's stuff prior to that where he's doing some good dramatic acting. But yeah, I really was surprised. I think mostly by him.
Yeah, I didn't realize the caliber of actors in this movie until probably 10 minutes ago when I quickly looked up the rest of the cast. The one thing that I will say about the entirety of the cast of this ensemble is the fact that they all kind of meld into their characters. You don't really, outside of Kirsten, you don't really look at everyone else and go, oh, well, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so, that's so-and-so right away. Like, it may take, like, for me, it took me a minute to realize, like, who some of these people were in the film. But that's because they were so invested in the character that they played that you don't really see them as anything else other than that. For some actors, like, if I were to see Adam Sandler in a movie, it's going to be very glaringly obvious to me that it's Adam Sandler, right?
Yeah.
It's hard for me to accept the separation between Adam Sandler as a comedian slash actor and the character that he's portraying.
Mm-hmm.
In this instance, with all of these actors, these pretty much A-list actors playing these massive roles in this movie, I didn't really have that problem.
Mm.
I saw them as singular characters as opposed to who they were as an actor.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I thought was awesome and really like played into I don't know, the brilliance of this movie.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Yeah. There's great performances kind of across the board. Molly Shannon, who's one of my favorite Saturday Night Live performers ever, she was in the group of players just before I started watching it all the time, but I still very much appreciate Molly Shannon. Her film Superstar, based on her Saturday Night Live character, Mary Catherine Gallagher, is not a great movie, but being able to spend that much time with Molly Shannon like on screen is a real gift, folks. If you haven't seen Superstar, go back and spend some time on it. But even Molly Shannon has a bit of she has a character that she can do several times, across different films. It's like, okay, this is, and here I actually had to question if it was her. I was like, is that Molly Shannon? I'm not, it really sounds like her. It really looks like her, but interesting. But yeah, she was really good. I was a big fan of Asia Argento as Comtesse du Barry. Yeah. She was also very good.
Yeah, that's also not just a testament to the actors who are playing these roles. It's also a testament to the makeup artists who are doing their jobs to really hide who they are as actors themselves. They do a very good job of.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I'm more impressed with this movie than in love with it, and I think that a really big part of that is like, I think that the costume, the hair, the makeup, the locations, those things are undeniable. Like, you would be out of your mind to be like, that's not really that good. Like, it's unreal how good all of those things are. And pairing that like super high level of skill required to pull those things off. If you're unfamiliar with how movies are made, you can't necessarily just go like buy all these outfits like off a rack. And even if you could, even if you have some costumes available, maybe they still have to be fitted to the people, and then you still have to perform through wearing them. So pairing that like really high caliber of production value with this kind of interesting anachronistic take on history, I really applaud that. And not to keep talking about the Odyssey, but I felt the same way there, where they're doing all the work of like, okay, here's this big impressive stuff, but then we're going to take a new spin on this story that a lot of people are really familiar with to kind of relate it to something, in our modern experience, which is, the horrors of war and what it means to slaughter innocent people just because someone told you to. So.
No, it's definitely not as grand of a scale as Nolan's Odyssey, mostly because that's all shot on IMAX. It's on a massive IMAX screen or whatever. But if you look at just like the sets alone, you could spend hours just staring at of one frame, two frames, like one scene, and find something new in it for like an hour. You'd notice something different because it's just massive, so much detail that it's insane. I don't even want to know how long it took for them to do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't imagine how many people it took to do all of that.
Yeah,
that is a lot of work.
Right.
And a lot of great work at that. Because if you were to walk in there and it just be a set, dude, I think I'm like in France in a building somewhere, like in a French building,
Mm-hmm.
not on a set at fucking Warner Brothers,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick before we have to head out, is there anything that you didn't necessarily like about this film? It kind of like irked you a little bit? Even a
No,
little bit?
well, I mean, just the idea of like, well, do I really feel bad for these super wealthy people? Do I really feel bad for the royal court while people are starving? No is the answer to that. I appreciate taking a historical figure and making her relatable to our own personal experiences. But at the end of the day, I was like, I don't know. I probably would have been at the door too,
Honestly, probably the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know the deal at the end of every episode. What is one film that you think not a lot of people have seen that you think that someone should watch for the very first time?
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. I know you've done this like 2 or 3 times already. You should.
Which ones have I said before?
That's a great question.
Because
last time or the first time was Magic Spot.
Okay,
And then,
that sounds right.
I really should have a letterbox list of all the things that people have said.
There you go. Hey,
I really should.
You have a project.
I should probably work on that today.
You have a project for the rest of the day.
I know. On top of the already lingering schoolwork.
Yep, that's right. That's right. Okay, well, in keeping with Coppola being a female director, I actually just made a list yesterday. I just finished a list called A Woman's Work. The description is films directed by women, aka the only films that matter. So let's can we randomize this list somehow?
You should be able to.
Sort by shuffle. Okay, I'm going to hit shuffle, and the first one to come up is going to be my recommendation. Oh, fantastic. All right, this is a great film. I'm going to recommend Girlfriends. This is from 1978, directed by Claudio Weil. 88 minutes. Great movie taking place in, old New York when things are grimy and dirty, and it's just about two friends and kind of their life and the main character and how she navigates social situations and being young and not having lots of money. I highly recommend it. It's a great movie. And added bonus, Christopher Guest of films such as Spinal Tap, This Is Spinal Tap, or Best in Show. He acts in this movie, and you see his entire naked butt. So if anyone out there wants to see Christopher Guest's butt in 1978, watch Girlfriends.
Nice. Hell yeah. All right, Seth. Where can we find you on the interwebs?
Hey, I'm on Twitter at Sethy. That's OHSETHY. I also host a podcast with my friend Michelle. It's called Movie Friends, and we talk about movies from throughout film history. All genres, new stuff, old stuff, stuff you've never heard of. There's a lot. You should check it out.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for coming on, and until next time, bye.